A very good morning, respected principal, DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, Vice Principal, IQAC members, Chairperson for today's session, Dr. Zenia De Silva, presenters for the day, colleagues, and all other participants. I, Dr. Jocelyn Hendricks, welcome you all to the fourth session of the Students' Webinar Series Conclave 2021, organized by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Goa. Before we begin with the session, I kindly request all the participants to switch off their cameras and mute their microphones during the session. The floor for questions will be open towards the end of all the three sessions. You will be required to post your questions or queries in the chat box during the question and answer session. Also, at the end of the session, a feedback link will be posted in the chat box. Kindly provide us with your valuable feedback. Today, we have with us three speakers. The first is Ms. Kanisha Singh from TYBSc Zoology. She'll be speaking on the topic Birth by C-section is becoming a money-making practice for hospitals in India. In the second session, we have Ms. Aditi Dinesh Gadikar and Ms. Kritika Shabi Naik Misangar, both from the TYBA Philosophy, who will be speaking on the introduction to ecofeminism. And the third session will be delivered by Ms. Simran Shekhar from TYBSC's Geology. She'll be speaking on the topic Have Women Gained Freedom After 75 Years of India's Independence? I would like to request Dr. Mukta Karmadi to introduce Dr. Zinia De Silva, the chairperson for today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Jocelyn. Good morning, one and all present here. A warm welcome to our chairperson for today's session, Dr. Zinia De Silva. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Zinia De Silva to the participants of this session. She's an alumnus of Dempe College of Arts and Science. Dr. Zinia De Silva received her PhD in 1987 on the topic The Problem of Death, a Philosophical Analysis from the University of Bombay. She was head of the Department of Philosophy and Psychology till the year 2005 and thereafter continued as head of the Department of Philosophy Department till she took voluntary retirement in 2018 after 38 years of teaching. She continues to be the VC's nominee and the subject expert for 4 PhDs in philosophy at the Goa University. She has presented papers and participated in various panel discussions, and she has contributed to the college working in various capacities as the convener of IQAC, Alumni Association, Philosophy Association, Admission Committee, and also she was a convener of many non-conventional courses such as preliminary preparation course for competitive exams, yoga and meditation course, personality enhancement course, college food festival, and so on and so forth. She has served as a member of many committees such as Faculty Research Cell at Goa University, Screening and Career Advancement Committee at Goa University, Advisory Committee of NAC, BOS in Philosophy at Goa University, and Parvati Bai Chowgule College of Arts and Science. And also in our college, she has worked as a member of Mentoring Committee, PTA, Grievance Cell, and many other committees. She has also served as Secretary of DEMPIC Teaching Faculty and Executive Member of UPTAG. Ma'am, it's a great pleasure to have you with us today. On behalf of Principal, Vice Principal, IQAC, and all the participants of this session, I extend a warm welcome to you, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Mukta.
Now I hand over the session to Dr. Jocelyn Hendricks. Jocelyn, please.
I would now like to request our first speaker, Ms. Kanisha Singh, to begin with her session.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kanisha Singh from TY Zoology, Dempe College. I'm very glad that I got this opportunity after all the negativities which were going on in the environment because of this pandemic, after a very long time, we people have come up with this great initiative, and we people are all here to share our thoughts and talk about the serious issues going on in the country. My topic is birth by C section is becoming a money making practice for hospitals in India. So, C section. Basically, what is C section? There is nothing that can come close to love that a mother feels for her baby. It's most precious feeling in this world. But nowadays, what is happening around us in our country is something very severe. It is not good for a mother who is like a lady who is going to be a mother. The difficult circumstances which she is going through because of all these kind of problems, like C-section, which is which is imposed forcefully, which is not even required, and a lot of times people have different kind of difficulties, like financial issues, mental issues, and emotional issues. Still, a lot of our women has to go through these kind of problems and has to face all this while the most precious time of her life. So, what is C-section? C-section or a cesarean section delivery, also known as the cesarean section, is the surgical delivery of a baby. It involves one incision in the mother's abdomen and another in the uterus. So basically, it is performed in two ways. A child delivery is performed in two ways. Either it's a vaginal delivery, which is the normal, natural way of the birth, and other is a C-section in which a like with the surgery this is performed. Here on the slide we can see the difference between a C-section and a normal vaginal birth. Now, what is a C-section? C-section or a cesarean section is a surgical process used to deliver the baby. As I have already told, and according to the guidelines laid down by the World Health Organization, WHO, the process should only be used in complicated pregnancies. This is not something that should be used as in general. If a lady is physically fit, then there is no need to perform the C-section actually. But what is going on in the current situation that doctors are imposing and forcefully telling them to perform C-section for the money making purpose, as this process is costly, like it costs a lot more than the normal delivery, and especially it is going on in all the private hospitals. So cesarean uh, cesarean birth rate in India has crossed through threshold of 15%, say studies. Experts blame unregulated market and increasing threat of women opting for it. Indians are opting for cesarean operations for delivery of children more than ever, listed government data shows. Why we are going through all this, like continuous C-sections? Why and how our women became so weak suddenly that we all know that all our previous, like all our like ancestors, and since always we people used to have a great strength, like it is said that Indian women has a great strength, and they usually used to do normal deliveries and everything used to be fine. But now since last few decades, what just suddenly happened that every woman has to go through a C-section? Either any kind of difficulty or complication is shown in the body or not, still the lady is going for a C-section. Sometimes there can be reasons because some people are intentionally or likely acting they are especially opting for it so that there should be no you can say to prevent the pain. Ladies are taking this C-section to prevent the pain. Like they are opting for it so that there should not be much pain. But then, actually, is it the case? I don't think so, because having an going through an operation is more painful and it is a delayed process than the natural birth. And whatever comes naturally is mostly the correct thing. Like when you do something imposed, I'm not saying it's not important to have a C-section. In some cases, it's really needed. But why are we going through C-sections when it is not needed? So since 2008 and 9, cesarean section deliveries, also known as C-sections, have doubled in India at both government and private hospitals. India has registered a jump of over 300% in C-section deliveries at public hospitals and 400% in private hospitals in the last decade. So just see the amount, 300%, 400% jump is going on. We have a chart over here. In 2008 and 2009, the public hospitals registered total 73.13 lakh births, of which 4.61 were C-sections, just a little over 6%. So here there is a comparison, the percentage of C-section conducted at public facilities and at the private facilities. So this is basically still the private ones are on the higher side. Why? Because these people are costing anything for the C-sections and they just make the women or the family so like they tell them and they literally put them into pressure that whatever you do, you have to go for a C-section, otherwise it will be a threat for the mother and child. So basically, they are just they are just interacting the thing and like they don't want it to be the natural way. So now, according to a data collected by the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare under Ministry of Health Information System HMIS, over 14% of the total childbirth in 2018 and 19 took place through a C-section. Around 19 lakh births out of the total 1.3 CR in public hospitals. Now, C-section is a supplier induced demand driven by monetary initiatives. In the case, supplier is a hospital who can sell the product to a patient with limited information. Due to the unregulated market and no clear protocols, India is facing an epidemic of C-sections, said health economist Indra, uh, Indranil Mukhopadhyay, who is an assistant professor at OP Jindal University. According to a study by the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, natural delivery in a private facility cost on an average of 10,000 rupees, which is while a C-section cost to 23,000. See, the amount is like maybe three times, 23,978. It's like the cost is going three times higher, and just to make money, they are just going on with the C-section. The scenario is the same at private hospitals that are usually blamed to be C-section friendly. Consider the fact that the surgery required longer hospitalization, leading to higher billing. So here is the public institution and the private institution again compared, how the graph is rapidly increasing. What is going on? They just like when you go through a C-section, you have to stay in the hospital for several days, which will increase the bill till lakhs. Actually, the this data which is shown is like telling us the amount as 30,000 or 40,000, but actually if you go to see and if you go to see around the people around you, it costs more than lakhs. And some people, like hardly there is a amount of percentage of people in our country who can afford that much. A lot of people can't afford it, but still they have to go through, and if they are not going through it, then they have to pay the cost other ways. Like if a mother who's not able, or if a family who's not able to pay such high bills, they are sometimes just let out of the hospital that we can't deliver the baby because you can't pay the bill. This shouldn't be the way. Now, however, there were as many as 9 lakh preventable unplanned C-sections out of 7 million in private hospitals, says a study by Institute of Management in Ahmedabad again. So see the amount, 7 million in private hospitals, 7 million deliveries were done, which was preventable. There was no need of C-section, but still they got through it. Isn't like is it something which is going right? It's all corruption is coming up in the medical field itself. The doctors whom we like trust the most, when a family goes to the doctor, they have a trust in him, and what they are doing is something which is not at all right, and this is something really severe and really serious and should be taken, and it should be like taken into consideration, and like people should think of it like what is going on, and one should have a proper information before going to a doctor that what is actually going on. One should ask why there is the need of c-section. Approximately 40.9% births in private facilities in India were through C-sections. Just see the amount. 40% of the deliveries are through C-section only. Just imagine only 60% of the women are able to do it normally, and out of them mostly are the rural ladies who like the ladies from the rural section who are performing a natural birth, because they don't even have the facility to reach to the hospital, so they have to go through it the natural way. But whoever is reaching to a private or maybe a public hospital, they are going through a c-section mostly. There is again a data which is showing how this is increasing with from 2009 till 2019. You can directly see the percentage of C-section deliveries from 8% to 20% exchange which is going on. Now, um, there is a case study which I was going through. A lady in Haryana died after her delivery, which was done through C-section and which was not even required. Like they purposely did a C-section and that lady died then and there. Why feminists are quiet at that time? Why no one raised their voice? Her story, it's a big story. I can't tell it right now because of the time shortage. But that was seriously such a bad condition which she faced before dying. She told her story in a short way, however, and her family told that what was going through. There was no need of a C-section. That lady was in labor and she was ready to give the birth. And still they like the doctor could feel the head of the baby at the cervix, but still they performed the c-section and that lady died, and no one spoke a word about her because she was not a rich lady. She was from a rural background and she was a poor lady, so no one even bothered to talk about her or raise a voice for her. Most private hospital doctors have been blamed for performing to advocate the C-section births for it being more financially beneficial. There could be other genuine medical reasons that cannot be re- ruled out. So what is going on is like they are doing it for financial benefits. We all know, but then it can't be the case every time. Sometimes there is actually a need, but then who can rule out this? If I or if anyone who goes to a doctor, we don't know what is going on. And if they just simply say that there is a complication or something under some kind of a peer pressure, we go on doing what they say. And a lot of times it is not even required. So so these kind of problems which are going through has to be taken into consideration. Now, there what can be done for this for to prevent the c-section or to educate people about this. So preventable c-section burdens on mother and child. What is this actually? Let's talk about it. When medically justified c-sections prevent maternal and paternal mortality and mobility, but if performed when not needed, they impose huge burden on the mother and the child. Hello. Yeah. So I was going through one article there. What was the scenario? Won't even believe. No one can even believe. This was so heart touching and it was so sad that then a lady who just gave birth to a child through a cesarean C-section, and she didn't have the money to pay. Like her family was so poor that they couldn't bear the expenses. They directly threw that lady out of the hospital with her not even giving her the stitches. They just sent her out directly, and that lady again died. So, like, how can they be so heartless when it comes to these kind of things? For the newborn, it means delayed breastfeeding, lowered birth rate. So what is going on is when the baby is carried out, sometimes in the C-section deliveries, mostly in the private hospitals, what is going on is like they perform on an average, a doctor performs approximately 10 to 14 deliveries in a day. And then they say we are overstressed with the burden of deliveries, and because of that, we are going through C-sections. And for because of that rush which they are doing, a lot of times they don't breastfeed the child only. So in one case at Chhattisgarh, there was a lady, and there was a case actually in which the child was not given the breastfeed for 12 hours, and the child died then and there because of the lack of nutrition. So according to WHO, they say that the the conditions can be made better, but what is the need to make it better? It can't be one day thing. Like there should be, like there is the need of the contribution of the whole country for this. In order to reach our goal, in order to restrict these unwanted C sections, what can be done? Is the one more important thing is that there should be good education which should be provided to the parents or going to be parents, that what is actually going on and what are the things you can actually prevent. Like if some specific kind of terms which are doctors using for just making the things complicated, and if we are uh, giving a talk, or if we are educating people about it, then we can prevent a lot of unwanted C-sections. Simultaneously, we can we can spread awareness about these programs. We can launch some programs in which we can go to the rural areas, especially because there there when the people are not educated, it's very difficult for them to understand what is actually going through. There should be surveys which can be conducted by the youth and the women itself. Women should help women in such cases. Then only it will be called as, like, it will be the real feminism if you can go and help other women. So this is all from my side, and here are the references which I have kept. And I would like to thank the principal of our college, Dr. Vrinda Borkar, with my mentee, Dr. Suchna Amonkar. She's the HOD of Zoology Department. I was very glad to have this whole talk with you all. And in conclusion, what I want to say is just make an awareness. Just we all should make a move to take this all forward. It shouldn't be restricted till this class or till this meet. It should go on so that a lot of lives can be saved with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Kanisha Singh, for your views on how birth by C-section is becoming a money-making practice for hospitals in India. It was truly insightful. I now request the speakers of the second session, Ms. Aditi Dinesh Kadekar and Ms. Kritika Shabi Naik Ms. Sangar, to take over.
Morning, one and all present here. Myself, Kritika Naik, with my fellow mate Aditi Gadikar from Philosophy Department, TYBA, will be presenting on the topic ecofeminism. Let me begin with the shlok. बालिका अह बालिका नव युग जनिता अह बालिका नाहम bala दुर्बाला आदि शक्ति ambika. I am a girl of modern times. I am not feeble or powerless. I am Adi Shakti, I am Ambika. Let's begin with the topic feminism. Feminism is the belief in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. The goal of feminism is to challenge the systematic inequalities women face on daily basis. Feminism is a social, political, and economic movement. It is about changing the way people see male and female rights, mainly the female, and campaigning for equal one. Somebody who follows feminism is known as a feminist. Ecofeminism. Ecofeminism is an ideology and movement that sees climate change, gender equality, and social injustice more broadly as intrinsically related issues, all tied to masculine or the male dominance in society. A philosophical and political theory and movement which combines ecological concerns with feminist ones, regarding both as resulting from male domination of society. In other words, as now we all are familiar with the topic feminism, there is a concept of two ideologies, that is environmentalism and feminism, called as ecofeminism. It is an ideology, a movement that sees climate change, gender inequalities, and social justice more broadly as intrinsically related issues, all tied to masculine and or the male dominance in the society. It is the relationship between woman and earth. Origins of ecofeminism. The term ecofeminism was coined by the French feminist Françoise de Eubon in 1974. Origins 1974, Northern India. The modern ecofeminist movement was born or brought up by the conferences and workshops held in the United States by a coalition of academic and professional women during the late 1970s and 1980s. They discussed the ways in which feminism and environmentalism might be combined to promote respect for women and nature. They noted that women and nature were often depicted as chaotic, irrational, and in need of control, while men were frequently characterized as rational, ordered, and thus capable of directing the use and development of women and nature. The Chipko movement. The Chipko movement, also called as the Chipko Andolan, non-violent social and ecological movement by rural villages, particularly women in India in the 1970s. The aim was to protect the trees and forests slated from government-backed logging. The Chipko movement followed Gandhian philosophy of peaceful resistance and was an uprising against the people destroying ecological balance. The movement received wide publicity and its two main leaders were Chandi Prasad Bhatt and Sundarlal Bahuguna, and were both the leaders are known as the best environmentalist in India. Principles of ecofeminism. First, we must replace our culture of domination with an ethic of care. Ecofeminism advocates for repairing this entire masculine or the male system of domination and exploitation and replacing it with an ethic of care. An approach to morality grounded in feminine characteristics of care and nurturing. Second, all forms of oppression are unacceptable and interconnected. Under ecofeminism, all forms of oppression are unacceptable. For environment to be all encompassing, it has to consider all people. Third, understanding the connections is necessary for equitable change. In order to make a real positive impact in both the cases of environmental degradation and the oppression of marginalized group, ecofeminism says we have to understand risks to the society. Fourth, the people most affected by environmental destructions must be the people to lead the movement. As ecofeminists push for an inclusive ethic of care, there is also an emphasis on the importance of having diverse leadership at the forefront of the movement. In particular, the people who are most affected by the environmental destructions, women particularly, or the women of color, are the ones who are the best equipped to address in an identity the right solution. Contribution of women, ecofeminism towards women empowerment. First, the power of educating women. Education is human right and very essential tool for achieving the goal of equality, development and peace. Educating women can be one of the most multi-beneficial key towards sustainable development goals. Educating women about their rights create awareness among them, empowers them to take important decisions in the family, to help them fight against gender-based violence, to be financially independent, contributing to the family's economic growth. Educated women are introduced to the power of their rights, which enable them to curb the evils associated with gender inequalities such as income, sexual harassment, wage discrimination, and gender-related violence. They can greatly contribute towards building a sustainable future generation. Educated women are more likely to take up paying jobs, thereby contributing to the economic growth of family, eliminating poverty, hunger, and uplifting the standard of living. Second, women and power of decision making and decision making. Women should be given equal opportunities for decision making in the families, state, communities, and country. There is a long legacy of women who have been in decision making and power positions. They have contributed tremendously towards strengthening communities and protecting the planet. Women leadership and political participation shows achieving gender parity in political goals is far off now because women are underrepresented at all levels of decision making worldwide. Third, contribution of women to environmental protection. It comes to no surprise that woman has been the silent savior of the environment long before the dialogue of environmental crisis and its protection was relieved. The reason being that the bond developed between nature and woman continues to be one of the most natural human bonds. This bond has taken roots in the history of women playing crucial roles in maintaining and providing care and nourishment of generations that came. An intention, an extension of contributions of women to protecting environment is protection of society. Owing the hard fact that a healthy environment is the starting point of a flourishing society, women have been at the forefront to ensure its continued existence. Thank you. I'll hand over to Aditi.
Thank you, Kritika. Contribution of ecofeminism towards environment. First, ecofeminism can be described as both ecological philosophy and social movement. It tries to study the critics of modernity in science, environmental studies, feminist, critical analysis, activism to explain the connections between women and nature, and the suggestions of these relationships or environmental. It is an activist and academic movement, and its primary aim is to address and eliminate all forms of domination and connections that humans have with the nature. Second, Ecofeminism tries to offer a way of thinking and organizing the interconnectedness with the environment. Ecofeminism puts forth the idea that life in nature is maintained through cooperation, mutual care, and love. There are countless ways of viewing the environment. In modern societies, it is important to consider the ways in which we connect with nature as industrial practices which move us away from the earth and biodiversity. Human and environmental connections can be made with a broader perspective involving less event overt social recognitions. Next. Steps towards ecofeminism and sustainable future. Ecofeminism has the potential keys to accelerate the success of sustainable development goals. They are first, education. There are needs to be a revival of ethics and morals in the education of coming generations. Education needs to make them aware of ecofeministic history and principles in order to be affected to the injustices done towards women and nature. Second, communication. There needs to be balance that needs to be achieved when giving information of the world to the general public. Media today needs to be trained to be sensitive, open-minded, and fact-based. Third, religious scriptures. Religion plays a major role in shaping human behaviors. Man has failed to identify the nature-centric aspects of religion. Fourth, curbing overconsumption. Ecofeminism does not want to repeat history by focusing on the works of one gender. Men's attitudes towards natural resources, technologies, and privilege must change. Fifth, approaching sustainable development. The position facilitates critical examination of how some of the largest multinational corporations picture a particular vision of the future, which will be acceptable alternatives to current ecological crisis. The ecofeminist reading allows us to see that even though the discourse is built around the need for rapid and huge change, sustainable development reinforces rather than change the forms of hierarchy and domination of gender, nature, and class. Vandana Shiva is one of the strong ecofeminists in India. I would like to recite a quote given by her. We are either going to have a future where women lead the way to make peace with the earth, or we are not going to have future at all. Last, I would conclude saying that understanding about humanity concept in this world and reality of life can be built up by women and men. In humanity and nature, the account of ecofeminists that are actually separate from both women and men are led to the exploitation of women, which this gender are more likely to be viewed as closer to the nature compared to men. The interconnection between women and nature of dominant traits actually lead to show the ecofeminism which are mutually supporting each other. The ecofeministic philosophy actually not mainly focuses on one section, that is understanding woman, but also understands the liberate woman with the nature in order to prevent it from the structure of oppression. These are the references we have used while making our presentation. Last, I would end it with the shlok. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. All Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. All be happy. May all be disease free. May everyone's life be happy and may no one be a partaker of sorrow. We would like to thank Conclave 2021 Dante College for providing us this platform. We would also like to thank our HOD of Philosophy Department, Ms. Roshida Rodriguez, and also Ms. Sandra Pereira for guiding us. We also acknowledge the presence of all audience. Thank you and have a nice day.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Aditi Kadikar and Ms. Kritika Naik for the enriching session on ecofeminism. It was really very informative. And now we have a final speaker for the day, Ms. Simran Shekhar. Ms. Simran, can you take over?
Now I can start. Good morning, everyone. My topic is: have women gained freedom after 75 years of independence? Yes, we women are independent. We work, we earn. And by women, I refer to all the daughters and sisters, wives and mothers who occupy all spheres of our lives. They work at par with men, be it strenuous work or typing on the keyboard. And yet I ask you all, are women free at Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav? Do Indian women have free will? And by free will, I mean the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate. Being allowed to work but shouldn't earn more than the man. Society frowns when a woman is being able to scale up the ladder of achievements and become wealthier. Women always get the beating in the patriarchal organization setup, even when occupying positions at the helm. This is the free will with an asterisk, conditions applied. We have situations even to this date when the family expects the daughters to be home before 7, Sachat Gharat. But can the same be said about men? I agree, this is for the safety of the women, but this is the whole issue. Society has not learned that men, should lower their gaze, which in turn makes the women feel safe. Mahatma Gandhi said, and I quote, real independence would be when a woman in this country can walk around safely on the streets alone at midnight. How does the society look at a lone woman roaming the streets at midnight? Does she enjoy the freedom of choice, or is she a branded promiscuous? Can a woman be respected just as a woman without prejudice? Or will she be respected only when she's a mother or sister? Is her freedom and self expression equal to that of a man? The development of any nation is indicated by the level of education, and that too of both genders. That is why education for all is strongly recommended and focused on by the Indian government. But still, India has not achieved what it should have during this period. As per global statistic reports of 2021, an effective literacy rate for men is 84.7%, whereas for women it is 70.3%. Though there has been a substantial increase in the number of literate women, this gap is narrowing. It persists. Among such figures, there exists a ray of hope as well. According to the census of 2011, since the year 2011, 110 million additional women had become literate as compared to 107 men. That means the number of literate women is increasing. Despite this, there has there is a dramatic difference in the female literacy rate based on various regions in India. The female literacy rate in urban areas is higher compared to the rural areas. In Rajasthan, most of the rural women are illiterate. Kerala has the highest female literacy rate, 92.07%, and Rajasthan has a lowest literacy rate in India, 57.6%, as per global statistic reports of 2021. States such as Uttar Pradesh and Bihar has the literacy rates of female 59.3% and 60.5% respectively, as per the global statistic reports of 2021, that are the most populated in India, yet show low levels of female literacy. A low female literacy means overall sluggish growth of India, as it impacts every arena of development. India is struggling hard to control its population growth through family planning programs. But if females are illiterate, then this has a direct and a negative impact on these initiatives. When a girl or a woman is not educated, it is not only she who suffers, but the entire family has to bear the consequences of her literacy. In such a scenario, not only women, but their kids also go through the same conditions. She, who does not know the importance of education in life, does not emphasize the same for her kids. This hampers the family as well as the nation's progress as a whole. Lack of education means lack of awareness. Illiterate women are not aware of their rights. They know nothing about initiatives taken by the government for their welfare. Illiterate women keep on struggling hard and bear harshness of life and their family. Talking about walking safely in streets at midnight brings me to one of the important issues of rape. Rape is one such harassment that is highly sensitive and serious. But there will be still people who find a way to say that provocation leads to the act of rape, whether they say the victim was wearing skin exposing attire or the victim was in the state of drunkenness. I believe no matter what the situation was, the victim was in, an act of rape can only be blamed on the assaulter. It could be a stranger at a party, a friend, or someone from the family. According to the National Crime Record Bureau, NCRB, Crime in India report says one rape happens every 16 minutes. In 2020, 77 rape cases were reported across India on an average every day, totaling over 28,000 over the year. The most notorious case of all reported is in which fortunately the culprits were hanged, was the Delhi gang rape Nirbhaya case of 2012. Although statistics show that sadly it does happen so often, we also notice that not many of these cases are reported. Only a small proportion of rapists will spend time in jail due to many varying reasons. The two major being that most of the assaulters are not reported and a slow judiciary system. These are the existing challenges of the society. It's 2021 and yet women are battling them. But what about those lives which are not given a chance to be born itself? Yes, female feticide. India has one of the highest rates of female feticide incidents in the world, according to the article reports of Down to Earth News published in 2016. The female child population in the age group of 0 to 6 years declined from 78.83 million in 2001 to 75.84 million in 2011. During this period, 1991 to 2011, the child sex ratio 0 to 6 years declined from 945 to 914. In the first ever global study on female feticide by Asian Human Rights, a Delhi-based NGO dedicated to the protection of human rights, it has been revealed that the preference of a son over a daughter is the major reason for female feticide. The dowry system in India, which makes daughters an unaffordable economic burden, also contributes to the female feticide. In a bid to encourage families to have a girl child, prevent female feticide, and educate the girl child, the government has launched Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao campaign in January 2015. It also launched several conditional cash transfer schemes, such as Balika Samriddhi Yojana and Dhanlakshmi scheme. But despite all the efforts, society must understand and realize the importance of women education, which can end the vivacious cycle of poverty, their misfortune, so that they can live life with pride. In case of any misfortune in life, it is education that would help her, not anything else. Society should work towards the number, distance, and quality of schools in rural as well as urban India. We should encourage the girl child in getting the education to create a balanced and educated society. In my opinion, an ideal society would not just be the one where women support women, but society as a whole supports women. Thank you. Also, I would like to thank my Department of Geology for guiding me for this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simran, for your valuable insights on the topic. Have women gained freedom after 75 years of India's independence? It was very interesting and thought provoking. The floor is now open for questions. You may post your questions in the chat box. I request the chairperson for today's session, Ms. Dr. Xenia De Silva, to kindly take over. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Mukta and Dr. Jocelyn. Very good afternoon to one and all. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
At the outset, I thank the Principal, Professor Vrinda Borkar, and the IQAC convener, Dr. Shilpa Saman, for inviting me to chair this session today at the DEMPE Conclave 2021. I feel this is a wonderful initiative to encourage the young minds to ponder on the significant issues confronting the world today. First of all, I congratulate the mentors, and in a very special way, I heartily congratulate all the students for their thought-provoking presentations today. I request, as Dr. Jocelyn has said, the audience to put your questions either in the chat box or you can directly post them to the speakers during the question and answer session. Now, coming to the first presentation on the topic, birth by C-section is becoming a money-making practice for hospitals in India by Ms. Kinesha from the Zoology Department. This was a very interesting and informative presentation. She cited how WHO has persistently advised C-section only in cases which are required, that is the complicated cases, but very often the doctors, especially in the last few decades, we have seen an enormous jump in the C-section due to the misinformation provided by certain doctors, the monetary incentives which drive them, and because of these reasons, we are finding or facing rather an epidemic of C-sections in India. She has also pointed out how the private hospitals are seen to be C-section friendly and spoke about the hardships faced, especially by the poor people who cannot afford the high bills. What was interesting was Ms. Kinesha supported all her views with relevant statistics and data, coming to the alarming declaration that 40% deliveries are due to C-section in India. She was very eloquent about the negative after effects of the C-section on both the mother and child. Yes, I would like to add that we definitely have no straightforward answer for an issue like this. If it is not abused, the C-section can be a medical boon, which is necessitated by risks to the mother and baby. And sometimes there is a voluntary demand for C-section, as pointed out, as the pain threshold of patients is seen to be increasingly falling in modern times, despite the counseling and motivation provided. Sometimes, as we have seen, a recent phenomenon is also the rising age of marriage, and so the childbearing age has also gone further, necessitating sometimes a C-section. But what Ms. Kinesha has pointed out is the abuses in this particular issue when a doctor does it being motivated by financial incentives and pressurizes the patient who may be illiterate or even from an educated family, creating an alarming situation where posing that either the life of the mother or the baby is at risk. So this is something that should be avoided, especially doing it when the patient does not medically need a C-section. I think being a teacher of philosophy, we have been dealing with these issues of medical ethics. And I feel that we all need to be alert and educate, especially the pregnant women, create an awareness in society and keep questioning the medical ethics time and again. This would probably create a sort of a general awareness of where certain doctors are abusing the use of C-section. Now, coming to the second topic, which is a very close topic to my heart, being a philosophy topic, Introduction to Ecofeminism. Both Ms. Aditi and Ms. Kritika gave a presentation with due weightage to the relevant aspects of the topic. relating to ecofeminism. They have rightly focused on the inescapable connection between women and nature, focusing on the origin, the principles, the significance of the movement, how the ethics of care can educate and empower women in society, how women can contribute significantly to environmental protection. The steps toward ecofeminism, sustainable future were very clearly explained. I just wish to add that yes, life in nature is maintained through cooperation, mutual care, and love, as pointed out by both the speakers. And what I feel is the need of the hour is to move towards an ethic based on mutual respect and contemplate on the different ways to connect to our beautiful nature. Women and nature definitely share a very powerful moral connection. Very well presented. The last presentation by Ms. Simran from Geology Department. Yes, this is a highly debatable topic. Have women gained freedom after 75 years of India's independence? It was very ably handled. She made an impressive presentation on this crucial issue, provided adequate data also to support her views. She emphatically brought out the importance of education for women, the challenges that women still face in society today, how the girl child can be encouraged. Indeed, this is what we see in society, especially in India. Women are still being very badly treated, considered to be unequal to men. The violence increasing against women both at home and outside, cases of rape, acid throwing, honor killing, all these are challenges we still face in spite of our independence. I just wish to conclude by saying that in India, since the topic focuses on the situation in India, I wish to conclude by saying that though growing up as a female has never been easy. However, women today, especially in our country, have shown that through their hard work, determination, persistence, their willingness to make sacrifices throughout their lives, they are proving to be more equal than ever. We can, I think, in a way say that the world is definitely moving rapidly towards gender equality. Yes, that's all that I have to say. We will now take up the questions, either put in the chat box or you can directly address them to the speakers. Thank you. There are no questions yet, no, in the chat box. Would you like to address the questions directly to the speakers?
I would like to say something.
Yes, Sandra.
I'm Miss Sandra Pereira from Department of Philosophy, and I just want to, I don't have a question, but I would really like to appreciate all the speakers who have addressed the ethical questions which have been raised on every spheres where women are facing so many problems. I'm really, I highly appreciate all the speakers of today. And I'm also grateful to Ma'am Xenia to be present over here. And I would just like to say about the first presentation that because me as a part of an NGO, we have faced the situation of, dealing with this issue of, unethical dealings which are done when it comes to delivery or when it comes to, delivery of a baby. Because there are situations where people don't have money, especially during pandemic. It was such a big chaos that people were worried. They did not want to go to the government hospitals because they thought that there is enough virus there is COVID there, and so many issues over there. So they never wanted to go over there.
and because of which they were forced to go in the private hospitals which were open. So during this time also, I myself, with my one of the lady that we were supporting during a pandemic, we have gone to hospitals over hospitals in Goa, in Panjim itself, private hospitals, in order to ask for help to do the delivery of the women. But because of the money constraint or whatever, these people were rejecting the to do the the surgery or to do the delivery. So this is like totally inhuman, whatever is happening in the society. And I have seen that so many cases, and we all have seen that there are so many cases which are, which are like that during the time the pressure has been put, last minute the pressure has been put on the family by giving different reasons that they have to promote it for or put it in C-section. So I just wanted to add this thing that there is a strict, or there is a on priority basis, this issue needs to be dealt with. And we all as the public, we need to, just because I have money, I should not be the one should be paying these people. We should question all the unethical things which are happening in the medical field especially. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Sandra, for sharing your views with us. We should all congratulate Professor Sandra and her team for the excellent work they do in society through the NGO Uzwad. Such NGOs need to be supported, and I'm sure our students will go all out to support her for the wonderful social services that they are providing on various issues, environmental as well as women-related issues in society. Thank you. Any more questions or sharing of your views? Hello, there are no questions in the chat box. I think some of the members in the audience could share some views. Hello, since there are no questions, I would like to hand over to Dr. Jocelyn. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am Zenia. Okay. So since there are no questions, the speakers have definitely done a good job in their presentations. Before we close the session, the feedback link is posted in the chat box. I request you all to kindly give your valuable feedback. And I now request Dr. Mukta Karmadi to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, wonderful session. Well done, students. Before we bid adieu, we wish to express our gratitude to all those who have contributed to the success of this fourth session of Conclave 2021 Student Webinar Series. On behalf of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Dempe College of Arts and Science, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the chairperson, Dr. Zenia De Silva, for accepting our invitation and sparing her time to chair this session. Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a great pleasure having you with us today. I thank our principal, Professor Vrinda Borkar, for always encouraging and supporting us to organize innovative programs and events. I also express my heartfelt gratitude to the management of DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science for their unflinching support. I would like to congratulate and thank today's speakers and their mentors for their commendable job. Thank you, Kenisha Singh and her mentor, Ms. Suchana Amonkar, Ms. Aditi Gadekar and Ms. Kritika Nayak, and their mentor, Ms. Sandra Pereira, and Ms. Simran Shekhar and her mentor, Dr. Manoj Ibrahimpurkar. Thank you very much for very informative and interesting presentations. You have done a commendable job. Congratulations and keep it up. Our sincere thanks to all the participants for joining us today. Thank you all for making this event a success. I thank Mr. Gaurang Bane, our system admin, for the technical support. Once again, I thank you all for being with us today. We shall meet again on the 11th of December for another session of the webinar series Conclave 2021. Again, a gentle reminder to all the participants to kindly fill in the feedback forms which are posted in the link is posted in the chat window. Thank you very much and wishing you all a good day ahead. Thank you.
Good job, students.
Thank you, everybody. It was lovely being with you all for a very informative and thought-provoking
Yes.